Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the Japanese resistance ends at Buna. We are now moving on to reunion at Casablanca. Roosevelt and Churchill meet. Again. January 14th, 1943. Allied Conference at Casablanca. On January 14th, the President of the United States and Prime Minister of Great Britain met at Casablanca in French Morocco for important discussions on future Allied operations in the war. They were accompanied by the combined chiefs of staffs of the two countries and their expert advisors. This was the fourth wartime meeting of the two great Allied countries. Leaders, my bad. Although Marshal Stalin was invited to join in the talks, he was unable to leave Russia owing to the offensive operations of the Red Army, which he was directing. Nevertheless, he was fully informed of the decisions made, one of the objectives of which was to relieve the pressure on the Soviet forces. The far-reaching importance of this meeting in North Africa may be judged by the fact that it was the greatest gathering of Allied war chiefs called since the outbreak of the Second World War. Mr. Churchill left Britain on January 12th in the same Liberator which took him on his 14,000-mile trip to the Middle East and Moscow in August 1942, so last year. President Roosevelt arrived in North Africa on January 14th after making the 5,000-mile flight across the Atlantic by clipper. During the conference, which lasted 10 days, the whole field of the Second World War was surveyed in detail, and all Allied resources were marshaled for the more intense prosecution of the war by land, sea, and air. President Roosevelt, Mr. Churchill, and their respective staffs arrived at the complete agreement regarding the plans for offensive operations which were to be undertaken by Allies against the Axis in the 1943 campaign. The conference also provided an opportunity for a meeting between the fighting French leaders, General de Gaulle and Guillard. These Casablanca pictures show, top left, General Noyes. It's French. I don't know how to pronounce that. I am sorry. And General Patton. I almost said Patton. General Patton. So there's Patton. There's Noé. No, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I greatly apologize. Yeah, there's just showing the two generals. Nice seeing Patton. Never seen this picture of him. Usually he's wearing his army hat, or his helmet, I guess. Not hat, but his army hat and things of that nature. Bottom left, it's President Roosevelt and Mr. Churchill. If you notice, a lot of these pictures, they're showing, obviously, Roosevelt sitting, even here, and here too. And they're making sure that the other leader is sitting too. The reason for this is, obviously, most Americans know by this point, he can't really walk, not very well. His health was catching up to him. He's not even going to make it to the end of the war, sadly. But he was doing his best for his people, and they wanted to show the public, hey, look, he's strong, even though he really wasn't as strong as he used to be, per se. And then above, Generals de Gaulle and Guillard. So, obviously, there's Roosevelt, Churchill, de Gaulle, and Guillard. It's always weird to me that Charles de Gaulle just kind of like, I mean, because he wasn't really a nice guy. He was kind of a jerk. But he kind of just takes over, and everyone just kind of goes, well, okay, I guess so. I'm not really. A lot of people didn't like de Gaulle, but he was liked by the people, and that's what matters. Doesn't matter if the other officials didn't like him, things like that. If the people like him, it doesn't matter what the officials think. Especially since they're French. Like, you don't piss off the French people. They do some crazy things when you piss them off. I mean, they've had like 1 million revolutions, so that should tell you something. The glory that was Rome fades in the African desert. January 23rd, 1943. British enter Tripoli. At 5 a.m. on January 23rd, the victorious 8th Army entered Tripoli, and the Union Jack was hoisted from a fort overlooking the harbor. Thus, the last remaining capital of Mussolini's former empire passed into British hands. 3 months to the day since the offensive began at El Alamein. The final advances on the city came from 3 directions. 2 columns of armored units and New Zealand infantry pushed through the desert to the south, while British infantry advanced from the east along the coast road. Most of the inhabitants of the city lined the streets as columns of British tanks, armored vehicles, and infantry filled up the main square from the suburbs. At midday, General Montgomery received the official surrender of Tripoli from the vice-governor of Libya at a point just outside the city walls. Since the attack at El Alamein, the 8th Army had advanced 1,400 miles in 90 days to reach Tripoli, an average of nearly 16 miles a day in most difficult country and often in bad weather. The pictures show, top left, British tanks entering Tripoli. And here we can see, like they said, the civilians are lined up. British tanks are entering the city. This is either a sign saying, hey, look, guys, stand on the streets so that you're not going to get... So the British don't just attack things. It might be done by the governor. Or the citizens were just welcoming them, saying, hey, thank you. We're glad to be liberated. It could have been a lot of reasons. Bottom left, a party of Gordon Highlanders with the harbor behind them. So there we see, good old Highlanders got their bagpipes. It says the harbor's behind them, but obviously you can't really see it very well. It's back there, behind the guys, so you can't, like that, like it said. And then right here is the British hoisting the Union Jack over the harbor. And yeah, for them, this is, it's a great deal. It's saying, hey, we did it. Our flag is above Tripoli. We've done it. Mussolini's empire is gone. His second Rome is what he wanted to call it. He was really not close. He wanted to make a second Rome, and it lasted him barely a fraction of the time. Rome lasted for about 1,000 years there, buddy. Gonna have to try a little bit harder than that. Actually, over 1,000 years, but... French forces crossed the Sahara. January 30th, 1943. Longest desert march. On January 30th, a mechanized force of fighting French under General Leclerc reached Tripoli after a hazardous journey of 1,700 miles across the Sahara from the Chad territory of Central Africa. From their headquarters at Fort Lamy, near Lake Chad, they advanced into southern Libya, attacking many Italian outposts, which, with the support of French air support, On January 6th, El Gatron was stormed by a Camel Corps detachment under Captain Saruzak. Much booty and 177 Italian prisoners were taken. On January 10th, General Leclerc's GHQ announced the capture of El Gatron, and Brock. Another enemy outpost in the French oasis. The conquest of the Fezzan was completed on January 12th with the capture of Marzouk, the capital, and Sebha, the chief military base. On January 27th, the Free French joined with another force under General Guillard at Godmez to undertake further operations. The photographs show General Leclerc with two of his men. There, I believe, is the general. Yep, there's the general, two of his men. And yeah, they actually, these guys, they marched through some hellish territory. I gotta give them props. That is the most unforgiving place probably in the world. And they marched through it, and they were effective. So good on them. They mentioned something in here that doesn't really even exist barely anymore at all, which is Lake Chad. It's basically gone nowadays. Very unfortunate. Very, very, very unfortunate. The 8th Army mops up in Tunisia. January 31st, 1943. Axis troops cleared from Libya. Advancing still westwards from Tripoli, the 8th Army maintained contact with the enemy rearguards and, on January 31st, occupied the port of Zura, the last Italian town of the Tripolitan coast. Meanwhile, advanced British patrols had crossed the frontier into Tunisia to the south of the coastal road. On February 2nd, a 15-mile advance was made from Zura to the village of Zelten, beyond which artillery duels were exchanged with the Axis forces withdrawing towards Pisada, only 12 miles from the Tunisian frontier. For the next 2 weeks, progress was slower and operations on land were reduced to patrol activity until, on February 15th, the 8th Army occupied Ben Gardain and its big airfield and begun the advance towards Medina and the Marath line. The photographs show above a British 6-pound anti-tank gun in action. You can see it right there. And there's looking like that one got blown up right there. But yeah, there's 6-pound gun. It says in action, but looks like they just got taken out of action. And then below, British infantry moving up to capture an enemy strongpoint under cover of a damaged German tank. Man, that must be so insulting. Can you imagine that? Just like, oh, hey, we're moving up on the enemy, but we don't have any cover. Oh, you use their downed tank. They ain't gonna use it. That must be so hard. You'd feel really just rude. Like, oh, what the heck, guys? That's just rude, But, hey, it's good cover. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.